Hey everyone, Thomas here with ForReel Movie News and Reviews, and I am joined today by Adam Brown, the director of this new documentary called Into the Storm. Adam, thanks again for joining me on this call. I'm excited to talk about this film.
Hi, Thomas. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I want to first congratulate you on the accolades that this film has already received. It premiered at the Brooklyn Film Festival and just got a bunch of awards, right?
Yeah, that's right. No, we were really lucky there, actually. And yeah, it was great turn of events, actually, because we sort of finished the film just as lockdown was starting. And that was a bit of a depressing feeling. And sort of one by one, festivals started cancelling, but, sort of Brooklyn stuck to their guns. And, you know, the, I thought, well, that'd be a great festival to sort of open with anyway. So we went ahead with what they were doing and with no expectations. And yeah, it worked out super good.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's a fantastic documentary, very well put together, and a very inspiring story as well. So, definitely deserves all the accolades that it gets and all the awards that it has earned and will hopefully keep earning. Um, can you just tell us a little bit about what Into the Storm is about?
Okay, so basically, Into the Storm is following the story of Jhonny Gurrero over 5 years. Jhonny Gurrero, who lives in Lima, Peru, in a pretty poor, deprived area of the city, as he tries to make it as a pro surfer and raise his family out of poverty. And it's all his sort of trials and tribulations along the way, which get sort of pretty extreme. Um, and I guess sort of the best equivalent is it's kind of a hoop dreams of surfing is kind of how I just describe it to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, a very inspiring story. I mean, so the documentary, I read that you guys spent 5 years filming this, so it covers about 5 years of Johnny's life, right?
Yes, we filmed him or I filmed him from 14 to yeah, just shy of 19, I guess, or just he was turning 19. So I never sort of planned to film him for such a long period, but the story kept evolving, and elements sort of maybe keep wanting to come back for more, and plus he'd experienced so much misfortune that I kept thinking, well, for sure, his luck is going to change soon, and we're going to have some kind of positive outcome, perhaps. But it was a bit of a lottery, really, and nobody really planned to spend 5 years filming anything. But there you go.
Right, and that's honestly one of the reasons that I wanted to have this interview with you, because watching the documentary, it just seems like there's so many things that could have gone wrong or that could have changed or that wouldn't have worked out the way that it did to put this movie together. I guess I want to start with, first of all, how did you guys come across this story? Like, what was it that prompted you to start documenting Johnny Guerrero's life at 14?
Okay, so I've always been interested in surfing. I surf a bit myself, so the subject matter was naturally appealing to me. But I was out in Peru anyway, filming with Swatch, who were helping Sophia set up her surf academy at the time. That was kind of my introduction to the world of surfing in Peru, and I was sort of doing corporate type filming for them, but with one eye on sort of that there might be a bigger, more interesting story to tell. And initially, I started filming just with a group of kids who were trying to get into Sofia Milanovic. This is this former world champion who lives in Peru. They were trying to get into her surf academy, and they were from quite a range of backgrounds. And I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. It's definitely worth sort of following that. Sort of following their dreams. But the most interesting, most compelling one was Jhonny Gurrero. And initially, I hadn't met him, but I kept hearing about him. But I'd met all the other kids, but everyone kept saying, "Oh, there's this incredible, talented kid. He lives in the barrios in Lima. He's taught himself to surf, and he's just this incredible talent." And I was like, "Wow, he sounds amazing. We should film him." And everyone sort of said, "Oh no, he's really hard to find," and sort of people with all these rumors, oh, he's robbing people on the beach and stuff. And So I said, "Oh yeah, we should film with him anyway." Though, and in the end, he got into Sophia's Academy. I mean, he was a shoo-in because he was so talented, and it was all sort of raw natural ability. And I was kind of drawn to his story, and so I started naturally spending a lot of my time filming with him. And then, so the more I got to know him and the more I found out about his story, the more I was like, wow, this kid is amazing. Everything that he's sort of come through already, just to be on a surfboard and being this good is amazing. And he had so little in the way of opportunity and support compared to a lot of the kids he was surfing against. That alone, that sort of underdog story appealed to me. And then he obviously got caught up in this drive-by shooting as well, and we suddenly realized that I suddenly realized that there was all this whole other world still going on that I touched on, but was much deeper than I really understood. And so that was sort of one of the turning points of filming, when I realized I had to sort of commit to it more seriously.
Right. And it is interesting watching the story because, like you said, you can see in footage that you capture, which by the way is beautiful. I think it's such a
Thank
gorgeous film to watch, just from like a cinematography perspective. Kudos on that. But you can see, when you're watching the story, you can see there are moments of triumph and great things that he does and how good he is as a surfer. But you also see the disappointments, and there are components of Johnny's life that, obviously he comes from a very challenging background, with his father being in prison, his family being in the less fortunate part of the city. But there are also disappointments that just kind of fall on him as well. I'm pretty sure there was one part in the movie where he was supposed to show up for a competition and doesn't. He's kind of, there's times where he's holding himself back, and that's so interesting to me and authentic to the story, that it's not just, he's constantly a victim of circumstance. He also has to kind of get over the challenges of being an adolescent. Um, and I guess the question that I'm leading to is, were you ever concerned in this 5 years that this story wouldn't pan out, or maybe there were factors that would prevent this story from having a happy ending?
Yeah, so I guess I spent most of that 5 years really worried, because I was committing so much time and resources and money that I didn't really have to it. So yeah, my 5 years of like constant worry, and then constant worry if anyone would believe in the story and want to help me sort of finish it and get it out there in the world. So yeah, that was always there, and that's just from the sort of filmmaking side of things, but also the is there enough story there? And would it be a happy ending? I mean, it didn't necessarily need to be a happy ending, I think, for the story to have value. I think just Johnny's struggle has value in it itself.
Hmm.
But you're right, though. When I heard he got shot, first of all,
Hmm.
it was a sort of Chinese whispers, and the first rumors out were that Johnny had been killed.
Oh man.
And there was a very real possibility that could have happened as well. So that was a pretty heavy moment. And then you're right, yeah, Johnny had a lot of, and still does have a lot of, I guess, what's the word? He has a lot of issues with lack of self-confidence,
Hmm.
self-doubt, which come because of his shaky foundations of his upbringing.
Hmm.
The absence of parents whilst he was growing up, the poverty, the so much uncertainty and lack of support in his life, and once when you build on those shaky foundations, you become sort of a kind of shaky adult, as he was
Hmm.
becoming. And that was really sad to see, because I could see that the other kids with much better, more supportive backgrounds, had so much more confidence in himself. And you're right, that manifested itself in Johnny like not actually turning up, and this sort of self-sabotage was just something that
Hmm.
was there quite often. I mean, I could have showed that other occasions of that as well, but
Hmm.
really the audience only needs to understand that once, or
Mhm.
it gets kind of confusing. But yeah, I think there were times when Jhonny would rather not know about how he could have done rather than turn up, and there were times definitely when he really, all he had to do was turn up and surf pretty well, and he would have succeeded. But he didn't have that person there at home, sort of, like perhaps I did growing up, or other
Mhm.
people have, that person who believes in you no matter what, and tells you you can do it, or tells you that it doesn't matter how you do that. it's
Mhm.
it's it's only a sport, whereas he was going out there every heat, even every training session, and surfing like his life depended on it, with all that anxiety and tension and fear, because his life really did depend on it. He'd aligned his future success with his success at surfing, and the survival of his family. And I think that definitely was the case. I mean, these things are never sort of totally black and white true. Often we
Mhm.
do have other chances and stuff, but as an adolescent, when you don't have a lot of life experience, and you have everyone backing you because of one talent that you have, you very much believe that that is your only chance in life and you mustn't blow it. And also that sometimes it feels like that's the only reason that people really care for you as well, or really want, or are supporting you outside of your family, is
Mhm.
because of this talent, and that puts a lot of pressure on you as a teen athlete. And I mean, I think this isn't uncommon to a lot of young athletes who have found a talent and found success at a young age, and it's pretty terrifying and fascinating, the pressure they put themselves under at such a young age.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of those points that you're saying are captured so well in this movie, particularly through the eyes of his coaches, because I think they reflect kind of all of those sentiments that you just mentioned throughout the movie when it comes to the pressure and his background that could potentially be a hindrance, and the support that he needs in order to succeed. um it is interesting to see how much more difficult it is for Johnny to be successful at this, even though we see his talent. We know he's talented, his coaches know he's talented, everyone can see that. But the pressure of all of these factors, weighing on him, and how that sometimes affects his performance. I know that there are times in the movie where he kind of cracks under the pressure, and it's interesting because with these stories, that's not like the ideal way of going about the story. You think, oh well, he's so talented that he can overcome that, and he's going to be triumphant every time. And it's not that. It's very real. It's very authentic, and that's what I really really like about this story, is um, how not necessarily picture perfect it always turns out, but how
Mm.
it does communicate that story and what Johnny's going through, and how he eventually does get back on his feet every time there is a disappointment. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, very, very great job capturing that. Is Adam, is this your first feature length film?
Yeah, this is my first feature-length documentary. I guess this is kind of like my breakout film, or whatever. I've been working in TV and film for a while now, sort of mostly in camera, but also sort of doing producer directing in TV and stuff. So this is very much, me trying to strike out and doing more long form work, particularly in documentary.
Yeah, I'm curious at how that experience is compared to work you've done before. And I mean, we kind of touched on the worry about whether this was even a story that would gain support. Like, how is this experience in making this feature-length documentary compared to maybe some of the shorts you've done, or some of the other video work, or even the photography work? Because I know you kind of have a background in photography, and you've done a lot of traveling to capture things. I'd really like to hear more about your background in like filmmaking and how that compared to this.
Yeah, so I definitely haven't sort of followed the ideal path into this. I studied design. I worked in design briefly, I guess for a couple of years or so, in product design, sort of in industrial design. and yeah, I wasn't really fulfilled in that, so I self-taught myself filming basically, and over the years, I did a load of production work with a friend. We had a little production company for a while, and I apprenticed. I worked as a clapper loader. I worked on sort of remote heads, I guess, for sports events, sort of tracking cameras and that kind of stuff. That was my way into the industry. And, I sort of gradually just built up doing a lot of camera work, and I did a lot of specialist camera work, filming in the mountains because I ski and snowboard, and sort of doing a lot of adventure sports as well. So I kind of had a bit of a niche going on, and that led on to sort of producer directing within sports, which I always enjoyed. But I love documentary, and I'd done sort of fair bit of factual work on and off. I was really sort of aiming to find that project to sink my teeth into, and was actively trying to find that story, which would hopefully sort of be that first big project for me. It came along, and I thought I knew a lot. I mean, technically I was pretty good with the camera and all that kind of stuff, and I could certainly tell a story visually. But the 5 years of this project was a huge learning curve for me. There were so many things I learned, I guess. From the filming side of it was all those soft skills of working with a sensitive, vulnerable contributor, with in another language that I didn't really know, in another cultural space, and with many variables about what was going to take place. There was a big thing of me learning to live with the unknowns of this project. It requires you to really find that headspace, and really be accepting of how things evolve, because it can really destroy you mentally otherwise, with the worry, particularly the more time and the more resources you've invested in a project. So yeah, I guess then there's that other sort of technical skill, which is sort of how do you, aside from all those soft skills, and there's others which I probably haven't even mentioned, but it's like, how do you cover a scene where you've got 3 people in a room having a critical discussion about somebody's life when you've only got one camera, and you've got no sound man? It's just you basically. How do you cover that, and make sure you've told the story, and you can't ask people to go again because this is unfolding live in front of you? And something like that was a revelation. Or how do I make sure that I'm equipped so that when things just evolve whilst I'm out walking around with Jhonny, or that I can react to that and get good coverage without a sound man, without a second camera? How do I do that? And those things were a learning curve, and I've got to say I was much better at those by the end of the several years of filming and stuff. So that was all the sort of the filming side of things. And of course I made tons of mistakes. There are things I missed. There are things you regret not getting. And then once you're in the edit, that again was an enormous learning curve. I mean, the edit side of things, so technically, I can edit, but that's just one thing. And I had a brilliant editor called Paul Holland. And working with him, and also the co-producer, Dimitri Deganis, that was a revelation. And sort of them helping me to smash these hundreds of hours of storyline and interviews and actuality into some kind of form. I had a good idea of the structure in my head, and what I'd worked out before the edit started, but those guys sort of really helped me learn that discipline that you needed to tell a story like this succinctly, and make it meaningful. And I've also had brilliant input from the BBC Storyville commissioning editors, Mandy Chang and Hayley Reynolds. 2 people with massive experience of documentary and narrative storytelling, and you just can't spend time with these people and not just learn so much. We didn't always agree on things, but you know, on the whole, they really sort of guided me and helped shape this story. And yeah, as a filmmaker, I learned so much by that experience. And I'm really grateful to have such brilliant people to work alongside.
Yeah, that's incredible. One of the things I was going to ask, but then thought maybe I have other things to get to. But since you brought it up, I'm going to ask. Is what was the thing that maybe you missed or you regret not catching? Like, is there anything that you can like let us know that didn't make it into the documentary that you thought was important to the story?
Well, there's things that you kind of would have liked to get. Like, I always would have wanted to be out there more.
Hmm.
There were things which I got other people to cover for me, which they could do in a sort of basic way. With
Hmm.
there's not cameras and so on. There's not much available out there easily. So,
Hmm.
there's things where I had to use other people's footage, or I had to grab some stuff from like a news crew who filmed Jhonny's first tryout when I wasn't
Hmm.
there. And it's always like, oh, I wish I was there, just to kind of make it look nicer, just to cover that story in a different way. So there's sort of more holes in the earlier footage, and I didn't think we would be so dependent on that, but we really were. Like, I thought we could kind of skim over that part of the story more, but in fact we really needed all that early material, and I had that was where there were sort of the biggest gaps in my storytelling, because I was covering a group of different kids, not just Jhonny at first.
Hmm.
And then there were other things where I was certain that they were going to make the cut. Like, I spent a couple of weeks in Hawaii with Jhonny, and this was sort of a really big test of his abilities when he went there, and this was right sort of towards the end of the filming period with him.
Hmm.
And so I was actually covering scenes and events really, really well by that point. I was like a well-oiled machine. I knew what I was doing, and I was like, oh, this for Hawaii footage is great. We've got it's his test of manhood here, and blah blah blah. And in the end, we just didn't use any of that
Oh
actuality.
no.
We just used a few shots.
Hmm.
Plus there was a ton of other material, like the day when he went to get his dad out of prison.
Hmm.
It was a really sort of super tempestuous day, especially with Jhonny and Jose, his mentor.
Hmm.
Even on the car ride to prison, there was huge fight and stuff, and lots of anxieties being aired and everything. And I thought for sure that a load of that stuff would make it, but in the end, there's only so much conflict and tension you can have in one story. And at some point you've got to say, okay, I think we've
Hmm.
done the tension between them. We've kind of shown enough about his anxieties, about his dad getting out, and this is sort of repeating the same ideas again.
Hmm.
And this is where having the experience of Dimitri and everyone else on board, sort of really helped me to kind of see where we needed to be a little bit more story efficient, and sort of get in and out of ideas quicker. Whereas, but because this is my passion project, my labor of love, I want
Hmm.
every minute on screen, and particularly all these powerful moments, explosive moments. You kind of think we've got to have them all on screen, but in fact you can't do that, or you just overwhelm an audience, and the meaning gets lost if people are always screaming and shouting at each other and stuff. um
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think there are a couple of very contentious discussions, kind of like what you're saying and what I mentioned when it comes to Johnny and the pressure and not showing up and kind of just not being at his best, I guess. And so some of that does get in there, but Adam, I wouldn't mind a director's cut.
Yeah.
Just to get a more comprehensive look at that, because you can feel the tension. Even there's a moment where where Johnny is talking about his dad getting out, and he's so there's he's so just kind of bland about it. Like there's something he's not saying, or there's some tension he's not divulging in what he's saying. So yeah, it's there, and I think that what you guys ended up putting in the movie is very streamlined. It's efficient. It communicates everything without being overwhelming. But yeah, I'll take a director's cut if that's a fair
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah,
uh,
with the whole worries about his dad, I mean, it just he'd kind of, although he desperately needed his dad and he was missing that father figure in his life, you know, he had just
mhm,
had so much uncertainty because he'd kind of got some sort of stability going on in his life. You know, he sort of managed to pull this stability together, and he started really worrying about, you know, how is it actually going to be with my dad? You know, like there were a lot of bad times with his dad as well, and
mhm,
they clashed, and his, like he hints at that his dad sort of had, you know, some issues
mhm.
with alcohol and stuff, and you know, plus his dad got put in prison for quite a serious crime as well.
Right.
So you know, he had misgivings, and geez, I mean, at you know, I guess around 18 years old by that point, you know, to be dealing with worries like that, it's just so much. You know,
Mhm.
you can't believe it. You know, if you had to deal with stuff like that yourself, it's a big weight for a teenager to carry. You know.
Absolutely, for sure. So, and this is kind of a spoiler just to get it out there, but I do want to talk about kind of the end of the movie just because I'm curious at where things go. So Johnny, his goal since the beginning of the movie, since 14, was to become the world champion. And we obviously see all the ups and downs over the 5 years that you guys spend with him trying to get there. In the end, he finishes fifth in the junior world championship, which is totally honorable and very an incredible accomplishment for him. But you know, it's not world champion yet. I'm curious at where Johnny is now, what his goals are now, and what he's working towards, if anything, at this point.
Yeah. So Johnny, he entered the World Junior Championship. So you enter that as an under 18-year-old. So you had to be
Mm-hmm.
under 18 by a certain date, and that is the one that we saw on screen. There were two different sort of bodies, you know, that hold these world championships, and he entered both of them, did super well that year in his final year of competing as a junior. I mean, really, to come from where he's come from, you know, in this deprived barrio in Lima, and then to be up there competing against the world's best junior surfers, kids from America, from Australia, you know, developed countries with decent monies and support, coaches behind them, and all that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, he really did amazing to even be there in the first place, and then to sort of, you know, come top 10 and everything. And so yeah, the following year, it's really his first year competing on the adult circuit, which at the time was the World Qualifying Series, the WQS. And this is also known as the grind for you know, reasons that it's so arduous and so hard to make it from there onto the world tour, basically, which is where everyone's trying to get onto as a surfer.
Mm-hmm.
And so Johnny had like a pretty intense first year. He spent all his sponsorship money traveling and going to these contests all over the place, trying to, you know, establish himself as an adult, and basically got nowhere, which is not unusual for a young surfer. But also,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he's doing this unsupported. He hasn't got you know, the people he really needs to sort of support him in this endeavor. And so he got pretty disenchanted after that first year. Then he got dropped by his sponsors, which meant that he no longer had any income. And then you know, sort of in quick succession, all that happened. And then uh, you know, COVID-19 and
Mm-hmm.
lockdown in Peru, which has
Mm-hmm.
been really a tough lockdown as well. They've had an enforced curfew, and you know, a lot of people have been getting sick from COVID out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, the lockdown is tough everywhere, but so many of the you know, the families in the poorer areas are dependent on cash in hand work, casual labor. They don't have
Mm-hmm.
much in the way of savings. And so it's been really, really tough. You know, it's been survival mode for everyone. Now, that they even got banned from surfing there for quite a while as well, which sort of
Wow.
kind of killed a lot of people's momentum. The World Surf League, which is the banner that they're all competing under as well, got shut down. Still is kind of only now starting to open up in a very small way. And so it just sort of felt like everything that he was aiming for just sort of fell apart. He's a pretty entrepreneurial kid, and he's always been into his music and stuff. So he's actually sort of started another career as a kind of a rapper.
Oh,
And
interesting.
he's been recording a ton of music during lockdown. He's really passionate about it, really into it. And really, I kind of wonder whether that maybe is the path that he'll go down now. I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm really
Hmm.
hoping he'll get back into surfing, I think, as is everyone.
Hmm.
But he hasn't really got any financial support with that at the moment.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a watch this space at the moment. We managed to raise a little bit of money for him on his GoFundMe page, and yeah, but it is hard times over there, and I know Jhonny is struggling.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. And I mean, as far as your part in his story goes, this movie, I think, just captured that segment of his life. And if he doesn't get back into surfing, he's going to do what his heart tells him to and what he wants to pursue. But capturing this segment of his life, this journey to be world champion, I think what you did with it was so great and so. Inspiring for people just in those 5 years that you captured. So well done with that. And yeah,
Thank
like I
you.
said, hopefully he gets back into surfing. But whatever he does, definitely wishing him, the best of luck in any endeavor he chooses to pursue.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So I must be over time just a little bit, but I have one more question. I'm interested in the future of this film. Does it have distribution yet? Is there a release date? Like, where can is it still doing film festivals? What's the future of the film? And I also kind of want to know what you hope this story accomplishes, and who you think this story should reach and be consumed by.
Okay, so yeah, right at the moment we're in a few film festivals still, with Vancouver as sort of one of the biggies,
Hmm.
which we're really pleased to have got into. Yeah, so let's say we may yet get into a few more festivals later in the year, and we're certainly open to that. The film gets aired on BBC Storyville, which is sort of like the BBC's flagship documentary strand, and they were the commissioners of the project originally. So yeah, we're still looking for distribution. I would love for this to reach a wider audience.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's a pretty universal story. I guess that maybe on the face of it, because it's in Peru, because it's about surfing, people maybe could think this is kind of niche. But I hope that people would realize, as this is seen more widely, that this is a pretty universal story that most people can relate to, which is about being an underdog, which is about trying desperately to support your family at whatever costs. It's about survival. It's about the pressures on young people, particularly in these, super difficult, super underprivileged backgrounds. And I think it's, ultimately it's quite a positive story as well. And, I was pleased that we had a positive outcome. It was a positive story about Latin America,
Hmm.
because, there's a lot of, quite negative stories about Latin America.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I would love for this to be seen more widely. I would love for it to be seen in some cinemas as well. The online film festivals has been great. It's been a brilliant solution, and it's been amazing how all the film festivals have adapted. But I really feel that this stands up to being shown on a big screen. We've got an incredible audio mix, if nothing else, which sounds great on a big sound system too. So that's definitely one of the things we're working towards, getting that on some big screens,
Hmm.
and getting the thing distributed as well.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so happy we got to talk about this. I'm happy that you were able to get on the phone and have a discussion. I think it, like I've said, it's a wonderful documentary, an inspiring story, and I'm very happy that it's at film festivals and that people can at least see it there, and hopefully it does get wider distribution, because I do think that this is a story that will resonate with a lot of people. Just kind of this story about chasing your dreams, and doing what you need to overcome challenges, and pursue what you want. So yeah, excellent job on this film, Adam. I absolutely applaud your effort here.
Thank you so much. And if anyone wants to sort of help or find out a little bit more about what's going on in these sort of environments in Lima, there's a great charity called altoperu.org. So that's ALTOPERU.org. And they were pretty instrumental in helping me get access to Jhonny's barrio. They were pretty amazing helping me, to work with Jhonny. And they help tons of kids like Jhonny through sport and art, and also helping people to improve their physical environment within these barrios and stuff. And yeah, they're a small grassroots organization, pretty much saving people's lives every day. So I would encourage people to check them out, altoperu.org, if they've got a moment, and also to, if they've got any spare cash to donate to these guys, because they're doing some incredible work.
Absolutely. I'll be sure to post that link. Into the Storm will be streaming on the Vancouver International Film Festival's VIFF Connect platform during the festival from September 24th to October 7th. If you're in British Columbia, I would strongly recommend checking that out during the festival, and on their online platform. And yeah, we'll keep an eye out for wherever this movie shows up, and be sure to tell people and I'll be sure to tell people to watch it, because I do think it's a great documentary. So thank you so much, Adam, for this talk. I really appreciate it, and hopefully I will catch you on another project. It'll be cool to see what else you have going on, since you are so involved with these really cool, like, action sport type projects.
Cool. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the interview, and really pleased to be at Vancouver as well.